Well, I want to make a quick video on how to set up your turntable. Maybe you've just purchased a turntable through Craigslist, or maybe you just got home from a garage sale and you want to set up your turntable so that everything works the way that it's intended to. When you're looking for a turntable, you definitely want to take a look for two things. You want to make sure that you can get a turntable that has a removable cartridge, one that will actually pop off. That's really key because you may want to replace the cartridge and the stylus as well. It's also often an indication of quality. And you also want to make sure that your turntable has an adjustable counterweight. The counterweight is the big weight that sits on the back of the tone arm, and most higher-end turntables have a counterweight and a removable cartridge head. This particular turntable is the Pioneer PL550. It was manufactured in late 1975 and 1976 and was really built in the golden era of turntables, and it sounds amazing. If you can find something like this from the late 70s made by Pioneer, or even something made by Dual from Germany in the 70s, they're high-end, great sounding turntables. The first adjustment that you'll want to make when you get home is the counterweight adjustment. Now, I've already mentioned this. You'll want to unscrew this weight. It screws to the left and screws to the right. You'll want to unscrew it until you actually see your tone arm floating in the air, kind of like a teeter-totter. When it's floating in the air, you'll notice that the front of the actual weight has an indicator with a 0, 1, 2, and 3, and it's on a separate indicator shaft that you can actually adjust. Once your tone arm is floating in the air, you want to just slide that indicator so that it's at 0, because that's what you're doing. You're zeroing out the counterbalance. Your owner's manual will come with specifications on the actual amount of pressure that should be on the counterweight. Now, the counterweight controls the pressure of the needle actually sitting on the groove. It's really important that you have that correct, because if you have too much pressure, you could be damaging your records while you play them. And if you don't have enough pressure, you may not be getting the optimal sound because the needle won't be sitting in the groove the way that it ought to be. So you'll want to consult your owner's manual. In this case, this tone arm calls for 1.7 grams of weight. So, if I could zoom in and show you, the actual counterweight is set between 1.50 and 2 for 1.75 grams. You'll also notice that there's a small little lateral weight on the side. This is particular to this model. Not every turntable has a lateral weight, and no adjustments are required on that. The other common adjustment is the anti-skate. Again, this deals with the weight of the stylus actually sitting in the groove of the record. If it's not set properly and it's too light, you can actually encounter circumstances where your needle could hit a groove or a bump or a skip or a scratch on the record, and it could actually skate across the vinyl, hence why it's called the anti-skate adjustment. And in this particular case, the manual calls for 1.25 grams, and if I could zoom in and show you, that dial is set to 1.25 grams. Now, the other interesting thing that this particular model has is what's called a Quartz locking system. Now, the Quartz locking system basically is a timing belt system that makes sure that the platter spins at the proper revolutions. The way that it works is that you'll notice these indentations, these black indentations on the bottom. When I turn the turntable on, they actually spin, and there's a light that's shining over here. And when that comes into focus against the light, I know that it's spinning at the proper revolutions per second. So there's an adjustment up here for speed. If I turn to the left, it's going to spin slower, and they're not going to be in focus. If I turn too much to the right, it's going to be faster and out of focus. But if I get it right where it ought to be in the sweet spot, those little indentations are going to come into focus against the light, and once I know that they are in focus, I know that my turntable is spinning at the proper revolutions per minute. And of course, that's important, because if you don't have it spinning at the correct speed, your record or the music is going to sound too fast or too slow. Once it's at the right speed and everything's in focus, I can press this Quartz lock button, and that'll keep it locked in at that specific speed. Now, it's really important when you're playing a record that you never drop the needle on the vinyl. That's always a bad idea. That can damage the vinyl, it can damage the stylus. You always want to gently take the headstock of the cartridge, put it over to the spot where you want to begin, or whatever track you want to play on the album, and you want to hover it above. Often cartridges will have a little white indicator on the end of the cartridge, so it can help you line things up, and you want to slowly lower the arm down. Great turntables always have this function. You want to slowly lower it onto the vinyl, so that it drops onto the vinyl evenly and smoothly. Again, if you drop it on the vinyl, you'll be doing damage to your stylus and damage to your vinyl as well. So, and of course, when the record is done, you want to make sure, again, you're not picking it up because you don't want to scrape it across the vinyl, but using that tone arm and making sure that the tone arm will come up evenly and come down evenly. Sometimes the tone arm elevation unit needs a little WD-40 to help it slide down and glide back up easily. But great high quality turntables are going to have this function. So that's just a couple of things that are pretty standard in most higher end turntables. Of course, most turntables will also come with a 45 adapter for playing your 45 singles, and that simply gets put on the spindle on the top, and you can put your singles on that way, and it'll allow you to play those as well. So that's just some of the basic things that you want to look for when you're looking for a turntable, and some of the basic adjustments that you may want to be making. One final word is that often turntables will come with adjustable feet on the bottom. You just want to take a standard bubble, what are they called? A bubble level, I guess is what they're called, and place that on the very top of the turntable and adjust your feet until everything is level and the bubble is in the middle. Making sure that the turntable itself is level is going to help again with the weight of the stylus being on the vinyl and really getting that optimal sound that you're looking for in your vinyl collection. So hopefully that's a help of some of the basic things that you want to look for and the basic things that you want to set up when you get your new turntable.